Imagine an empire so vast that its name evoked strength, stability, and prosperity. A civilization built on the solid foundation of trust. Yet beneath that proud exterior, something subtle and destructive was taking place. A decay so quiet, it went unnoticed until it was too late. This is the story of Rome, not as a dramatic tale of invaders storming its gates, but as an introspective look at how a once reliable currency, the silver denarius, became the silent architect of economic collapse. For centuries, Rome's strength was held together by a simple yet powerful idea: trust. It was a trust that laws would be upheld, that soldiers would be paid on time, and that the work of today would have value tomorrow. This trust was encapsulated in a small object, the silver denarius. Originally, this coin was almost pure silver, a heavy, dependable piece of metal that symbolized stability. It was more than money. It was confidence made tangible. In every marketplace, in every household, the denarius was a promise that economic order would prevail. But as Rome expanded, its obligations expanded too. The costs of maintaining an empire, feeding armies, defending borders, building roads, and upholding public order grew relentlessly. The burdens of empire could not be met by increasing taxes without risking revolt and economic distortion. Instead, Roman leaders embarked on a recourse that seemed to offer a temporary salvation: the gradual debasement of the very coin that had once been their lifeblood. A little silver lost here, a trace more copper added there, until the once pure denarius became a shadow of its former self. In the beginning, the changes were almost imperceptible: a subtle erosion of quality, a slight dilution of worth. Under Emperor Augustus, the denarius was nearly 95% silver. Over time, however, its purity waned. By the early 3rd century, the silver content had fallen below 50%, and eventually, the coin became merely a thin veneer of silver over base metal. This shift, so quietly administered, laid the groundwork for a far more dangerous menace: inflation. At first, the decrease in silver content did not cause an immediate collapse. Markets continued, soldiers still received their wages, and trade flourished despite the silent decay of value. However, with every debased coin, confidence eroded. The assurance that money held its intrinsic value was slowly undermined. Like a whisper in the corridors of power, inflation crept in, a quiet force that would soon disturb every facet of the economy. Prices began to rise, not all at once, but steadily, imperceptibly at first. Bread that had once been affordable became a luxury its price tag could scarcely hide. Wine, rent, and everyday necessities climbed to levels that disrupted the delicate balance of trade and everyday life. The denarius had become a symbol of decay. As coins of ever-diminishing worth multiplied, a vicious cycle set in motion. Soldiers demanded higher wages to cope with rising prices. In response, the state debased the currency even further. The economy was caught in a dangerous feedback loop. Diminished value led to increased wages, which in turn necessitated further debasement. Trust in the medium of exchange, once unshakable, began to crumble. Markets that had thrived on the predictable value of coins turned sluggish, and eventually, a great number of citizens abandoned coinage altogether in search of more reliable means of exchange. Thus, the very foundation of Roman economic stability began to erode from within. As the intrinsic value of the currency diminished, so too did the interconnected systems that bound the empire together. Trade, the lifeblood of Rome, was disrupted as merchants and citizens alike began to doubt the authenticity of the money in their hands. In what had become a once thriving marketplace of trade and commerce, local economies started reverting to barter. Grain was exchanged for tools, labor was traded for goods, and the sophisticated financial networks that had once defined the Roman world fell into disarray. By the 3rd century, the crisis had reached a fever pitch. This period is now remembered not for the might of Rome's legions or the grandeur of its arenas, but for an era of near total collapse. The empire was engulfed by a dual crisis: internal economic decay and political instability. Civil wars raged, with scores of emperors coming and going in rapid succession, many meeting violent ends as the authorities struggled to maintain any semblance of order. Even as plagues swept through the cities and borders buckled under external pressures, the true enemy lay closer to home: a collapsing monetary system that no longer commanded trust. In an earnest attempt to remedy the disastrous consequences of debasement and its ensuing inflation, Emperor Diocletian introduced sweeping reforms. His famous edict on maximum prices sought to lock in value by controlling the prices of essential goods and services. Yet history has taught us that laws cannot create value where trust has already been lost. Price controls proved to be an inadequate solution, merely driving economic activity into the shadows, fueling black markets, and contributing to further deterioration of trust. The societal fabric, already weakened by economic discord, began to unravel irreparably. Eventually, the denarius was set aside in favor of new currency, a gold coin known as the solidus, introduced by Constantine. In the Eastern Empire, where this new standard was adopted, a semblance of order and stability was restored. But in the West, the damage had already been done. The armies could no longer be reliably maintained, trade networks had splintered, and the once mighty Roman administrative system was left fragile and unable to confront the cascading challenges of a decaying economy. The lesson of Rome is a somber one. The fall of an empire is rarely heralded by a single cataclysmic battle or an external conquest. More often, it is a steady internal decline, a disintegration from within that begins with the very essence of economic trust. Rome's silent collapse, initiated by the debasement of its money, serves as both a historical account and a timeless warning. This phenomenon was not unique to ancient times. The echoes of Rome's economic decay can be heard across history, in the devastating hyperinflations of 20th century Germany, the economic implosions in Zimbabwe and Venezuela, and even in the modern fiat monetary systems that govern some of today's major economies. In 1923, the German mark, once a symbol of economic recovery, was obliterated by hyperinflation. Savings evaporated overnight, wages became meaningless, and the very fabric of society was torn apart by the chaos of uncontrolled inflation. This bitter chapter in economic history is not an isolated incident. It reflects a recurring pattern. Decades later, nations in different parts of the world found themselves grappling with similar crises, where rapid expansion of the money supply led to a gradual erosion of purchasing power, eventually crippling entire economies. Even in the United States, the transition away from the gold standard in 1971 marked a significant shift in how money was valued. The dollar, now a fiat currency backed solely by trust and governmental decree, carried with it the risk of unchecked inflation and the erosion of value. Over time, as debt levels soared and credit replaced tangible assets, the potential for economic decay subtle yet profound, became ever more apparent. The coins and paper of modern economies may look unchanged at first glance, but beneath that surface lies a vulnerability eerily reminiscent of Rome's earlier mistake. There is an often repeated phrase that we return to in times of economic crisis. When money stops being real, nothing else remains stable for long. This powerful statement captures the essence of Rome's downfall. Money is not merely a tool for transactions. It is the foundation upon which trust is built and society is organized. When that trust is eroded, when the currency starts to lose its intrinsic value, the entire structure of social, political, and economic order begins to crumble. As we reflect on the slow, almost imperceptible decay that undermined one of history's greatest empires, we are urged to look at our own modern economic systems with a discerning eye. The tale of the denarius is not simply a historical curiosity. It is a mirror held up to current monetary policies and the delicate balance of trust upon which modern economies depend. The parallels are stark and cautionary. Just as Rome's leaders chose to solve fiscal problems by debasing their currency, modern economies sometimes lean on similar measures, steps that, while perhaps expedient, risk setting the stage for long-term instability. Today, even as we praise the innovations of modern finance, we are reminded that the most innovative ideas cannot replace the timeless necessity of sound monetary policy. It is a question of integrity, a question of whether the value we ascribe to money is truly backed by the systems that govern our lives, or if it has been slowly hollowed out by policies that treat trust as expendable. This narrative is a call to think deeply about the essence of economic stability. It is a reminder that behind every currency, every coin, there lies a promise of continuity and reliability that, once broken, can lead to catastrophic change. Ancient Rome's story, a tale of silent decay beneath the veneer of stability, is a lesson that resonates across millennia. It warns us that the collapse of an empire does not always come from the storm of external attack, but from the slow, quiet poisoning of its very foundations. Let this reflection serve as an invitation to scrutinize and challenge our current economic practices. Consider the integrity of the money in our own pockets and the policies that underlie it. When the very currency that supports our daily lives begins to lose its value, the repercussions may be felt long before we recognize the warning signs. Remember, economies do not collapse solely because of dramatic, headline-grabbing events. They falter quietly, undermined by policies that seem insignificant until they are too late. In the end, the legacy of Rome teaches us that a civilization's strength is not measured solely by its conquests or its monuments, but by the soundness of the trust that binds it together. This understanding of economic decay is not confined to a bygone era. It is a message that reverberates through the corridors of modern financial history. As you consider the questions raised by this story, ask yourself, are we too risking our stability with policies that might one day lead to a silent collapse? Reflect on current economic policies and the integrity of our monetary systems.